The very first Zoan transformation I can recall in One Piece is Dalton from Drum Island. Dalton was, I forgot what he was doing exactly, but I remember him transforming, and he transforms into his buffalo slash bison form. Now the thing here is that he doesn't go into full-on animal form, he goes into hybrid form. And this is the very first, again, the very first Zoan transformation I can recall in One Piece. Now, from then on, we see a lot more Zoan users over the course of the pre-time skip, and for the most part, when it comes to a lot of these Zoan users that are of prominence, let's say that, so they actually are meaningful to the story. So for example, let's say Pell and Jaka in Alabasta. Let's say, of course, CP9, when you have Kaku, Jabra, and Rob Lucci. When you have the Impel down jailer guards. All of these guys, for the most part, are in hybrid form. And it stands to reason, at least based on the pre-time skip, that the hybrid form is the strongest form of a Zoan user. Now, there are times where, for example, we've seen Pell transform into full-on Falcon mode. I believe when he actually picks up the bomb and he gets caught in the nuke, he's in full-on Falcon mode as far as I recall. Also, I recall Rob Lucci transforming into full-on, I think it's not Cheetah, Jaguar form, where after Luffy does the Gear 3 attack, and then Rob Lucci is saved by the ship, there is a moment where Rob Lucci just transforms into a leopard. There we go, not jaguar, leopard. He transforms into leopard form, and then he bites Luffy on the shoulder. So there are times where we have seen some of these guys use their animal forms, but more often than not, they're in hybrid forms. And so based on the pre-time skip, when you look at the vast majority of Zoan users, their strongest abilities come from their hybrid state. Now, there are some exceptions, like for example, Chopper. Because of the Rumble Ball, he had various different states, but they were all for the most part hybrid states. Like he has his mini Chopper, Reindeer Chopper, and then he had like big, beefy, jacked up Mr. High Chopper. And then with the Rumble Ball, I would say that his most powerful state in the pre-time skip, outside of Monster Point Chopper, was probably Arm Point. That's my guess. And then another exception would be the Mystic Zoans in the case of Sengoku the Buddha, and of course Marco the Phoenix. The Mystic Zoans tend to be a bit different when it comes to what they can actually transform into, like state-wise. Like, do Mystic Zoans actually even have hybrid form? I did a video on that over here. There's also another thing where there are potentially special Zoans, where in the case of Baron Tamago, Tamago can go into Baron Tamago, then go into Vice Count Chick, and then Count Chicken. He's very Paramecia-like in the way he transforms into different modes, but he's still a pseudo Zoan of sorts, so I call him a special Zoan. But in the pre-time skip, even in the case of the Impel Down Jailers, where they were awakened Zoans, it stands to reason more often than not that the hybrid form was the strongest form that a Zoan user could utilize. When Kaku first has his giraffe ability, and he transforms fully into a giraffe, he's kind of clunky and clumsy, and he's kind of awkward, and then his weight is too big, and then I remember him falling through the actual floor. Full-on giraffe Kaku was just odd, and then he goes into hybrid form, and then he's clean. So the full-on Zoan animal forms weren't that great, per se. Again, the exceptions were like Marco and Sengoku, but they're mythical Zoans. But in the latest chapter of One Piece, Chapter 983, I kind of have to rethink this when it comes to the Ancient Zoans, at least them. This could be potentially a universal thing, but I doubt that considering how, and maybe it was because they're more so Rokushiki users, but in the case of the CP9 guys, they were in hybrid form for the most part all the time, and very rarely did they go into full animal form. Kaku one time, and it was, awkward and clumsy, and then Lucci one time for one attack. But I guess because they were Rokushiki users, it was more beneficial for them to be in hybrid form rather than full-on animal form. And Rob Lucci, when he talks about Zoan abilities in Water 7, before they go to Enies Lobby, he mentions how the Zoan ability, the Zoan different ability, is the best ability to augment one's natural strength and speed and so on. When it comes to physical augmentation, the Zoan abilities are the best, bar none. And for their martial arts style, it made perfect sense. But then at the same time, you have guys like Dalton, who also did not go into full-on animal form, but stayed in hybrid form. But in the case of the Ancient Zoans, it is possible that they are at least, I won't say overall, strongest in animal form, but at least in terms of their raw physical power, they could be strongest in their full-on animal form, because they're dinosaurs. Now, this isn't my own thought. I actually got this notion from Twitch chat during the 983 live reaction. I forgot who said it exactly, but this concept does come from my Twitch chat. And in the latest chapter, we kind of see this with Luffy and Ulti, where Luffy is able to speed blitz and kind of seismic toss Ulti when she's in hybrid form. And then Ulti transforms into full-on dinosaur form. The exact name of her dinosaur, I think, is the Pachycephalosaurus. I think so. I believe so. Yeah, because page 1's the Spinosaurus, Ulti, the headbutt ones, the Pachycephalosaurus. But that being said, when she fully transforms, after Luffy does the elephant gun on page 1, she grabs him. And then Luffy says her power is too strong. And then she was going to go for the Ulti Meteor, and then Luffy was going to go into Gear 4. That, I'm not going to lie to you, that shocked me. That genuinely surprised me. Luffy! Gear 4?
No way!
I was not expecting, considering after all the training, I was surprised to see that Luffy was going to go Gear 4 against Ulti. Now, to be fair, this does probably indicate that Luffy has more up his sleeve. If Luffy is willing to go Gear 4 against Ulti, then it's safe to say that Luffy's actually made some tremendous gains over the course of his training in Wano Country and Udon, and so he may have a new Gear 4 state or a Gear 5 potentially, and we may see it later on this arc. I did a video on that topic, be sure to check that video out. But the fact remains is that Gear 4, it's still Gear 4. This is the very same thing that he used to take out Doflamingo. Like, that ain't no joke. Gear 4 is legit. It is, I mean, I would argue that in Gear 4, Luffy could have probably tangled an admiral. That's how good Gear 4 is, earnestly so. And yet Ulti, because of her raw strength, quote unquote, her power is too strong in the Viz translation, that was going to force Luffy into a Gear 4 bound man, or a Gear 4. You know what? Let me not say bound man, because he just simply said Gear 4. Maybe not bound man, could have been a whole new state, who the hell knows? But that being said, this notion that we're accustomed to in the pre-time skip, when it comes to hybrid form being the best form, may not necessarily apply. Meaning that, at least when it comes to raw power, and maybe in the case of, let's say, other major physical aspects, like, let's say, durability, let's say, endurance, let's say, stamina, potentially all of these attributes are, for the Ancient Zoans, at their best when they're in that form, potentially. Where they lack the speed and the agility, they make up for that in their raw strength and their durability and their endurance. Because, again, Rob Lucci's words, the Zoan ability is the best ability when it comes to augmenting one's physical strength. And the Ancient Zoans, baseline, are probably the best when it comes to augmenting one's physical strength. A good comparison here could be, let's say, Rob Lucci and Page 1. When Rob Lucci first fought against Luffy and Zoro, he was able to throw Luffy out of the Iceberg Mansion into the lower levels of Water 7, and Luffy was stuck between two buildings. And then he threw Zoro, or he kicked Zoro, and then Zoro got stuck in a chimney. And then we also find out that he also threw Nami as well. A very impressive physical strength feat to take a human being and throw them from the upper levels of Water 7 into the lower levels of Water 7. But in the case of Page 1, when he was introduced, the first thing we see him really do is catapult a building. Like, completely just catapult a building into the air with pure raw physical might. When he attacks Sanji when he's in hybrid form, Sanji goes flying through several buildings. In the anime, it's a toss. In the manga, he overpowers Sanji's kick. And then Law notes to, whoa, those ancient types really are something. So the physical strength of the ancient types really does seem to be their forte. Now you would say, okay, hold on. The Mystic Zoans, though, not necessarily true. Because the Mystic Zoans are kind of all over the place. Sengoku is a Buddha. Does being a Buddha mean that automatically your physical strength is going to be augmented even more than the Ancient Zoan? Not necessarily. The same thing would go for, let's say, the Phoenix. Like, being a Phoenix is dope, and you get more power, but the main factor of the Phoenix is the regeneration factor, not you get more physical strength or more durability. The main component of that mystic ability is obviously his regeneration and not his physical strength. So it stands to reason that physical strength-wise, Ancient Zoans among the other Zoan abilities may be the cream of the crop, and nobody does it better.
Nobody does it better.
So when Ulti goes into Pachycephalosaurus mode, and she grabs Luffy by the arms, and her power is too strong, genuinely so, Ulti, her raw power was at her peak. And then on the flip side, look at someone like Sanji against Page 1. At least in the anime, and I'm pretty sure it's in the manga too, but in the anime, I recall after Sanji was giving Page 1 the beatdown, Page 1 transforms into hybrid form, and then he states, it's easier for me to fight you in this form rather than my previous form, because he didn't have the necessary speed, the reaction speed, and the movement speed, and so on. That was lacking in his full-on Spinosaurus form compared to his hybrid form. Even when you look at, let's say, for example, Queen. Queen has a hybrid form. Now, to be on the safe side, I'm just assuming this, of course. We don't necessarily know for sure until we actually see it, but based on the other Ancient Zoans like Ulti, like Page 1, like Drake, I wouldn't see why someone like Queen would not have a hybrid form. But to be on the safe side, I'll just say there's a 99% chance that Queen has a hybrid form. If we go up to the pre-time skip, using pre-time skip logic, the hybrid form should be the strongest form. But he was going up against Big Mom. Does it make any sense for Queen to hold back against Big Mom when he knows how devastating, how fierce she can be? And even though she damn near two-shotted this man, the fact of the matter is that he chose to be in full-on ancient animal form. Even when it came to the Brachial Bomber, full-on ancient animal form, not hybrid form. Even in the case of King the Wildfire. King the Wildfire, he's in full-on Pterodon mode when he flies over and knocks off the Big Mom Chanter ship. And he does so with like no named attack, he just knocks it off. And I'm not going to say it's a guaranteed, of course, but in comparison, Marco does the Phoenix Brand attack in his weird, I'm not going to say hybrid form, but when he has the appendages of the Phoenix. So if King can do one unnamed attack and knock off the ship, and in the anime it's a flaming kick, and then Marco has to do a Phoenix Brand attack, then potentially, physical strength-wise, King is superior than Marco, which would make a degree of sense because Marco is a mythical Zoan where the main factor isn't his increase in strength, but more so his regeneration. Then for someone like Pterodon King, the physical strength enhancement would be greater for someone like King. If you're a wolf Zoan, or if you're a falcon or a cow Zoan, hybrid form is probably going to be pretty good for you in the vast majority of cases. Because those Zoan abilities innately probably don't grant the same level of raw physical strength that the Ancient Zoans can get when they're in their full ancient animal transformation. So when it comes to Ancient Zoans, I think for the time being, I'm going to remove my preconceived notion of hybrid form being the best form, just definitively. And in this case, it's all situational. Just how Page 1 transformed from Spinosaurus mode to hybrid mode because the situation required him to do so. In the case of Ulti against Luffy, it was a reverse situation where her hybrid form wasn't good enough against Luffy, so she said, screw it, I'm gonna go raw power, and that was good enough to force Luffy to go into a gear 4. Now, to be fair, it is a 2-on-1 situation with Luffy, but at the same time, Page 1 after the gun, we don't see him anymore. And Ulti just grabs him, and that's it. So Page 1 gets literally 1 page. That's it. No idea what happens to that. So at the end of the day, for now, I'm going to say Ancient Zoans, like with the Mythical Zoans, are a little bit different than your average herbivore, carnivore Zoans. Because for them, that animal form could genuinely be legit. Like, actually, earnestly legit. And I do know that a lot of us have this preconceived notion, which is why we were so confused on so many fronts when it came to why didn't Queen use hybrid form? Why is Drake always going into dinosaur form and not really attacking hybrid form? So many questions as to why the Ancient Zoans haven't used their hybrid forms more often than not. And I think for the time being, we can say that we are at least wrong when it comes to hybrid form being the strongest definitively for the Ancient Zoans. Because Oda is writing the Ancient Zoans a bit differently, clearly, than the other Zoans that we see in the past. They are using their animal forms far more often than we have seen other Zoan users use animal forms. So either it's a mistake on Oda's part, or Oda is telling us that these guys operate a bit differently than the rest of the other Zoans. So for the time being, I'm going to say that this preconceived notion that we had may be wrong when it comes to the Ancient Zoans. But that being said, guys and gals, let me know where you stand on the subject matter at hand. Be sure to rate the video. It is not that hard to do. I guarantee you that, because I know that you all have a device called Zamouse. You use Zamouse to click, rate the video, to click, subscribe, to click on that bell to join the squad. And of course, as always, feel free to, please do, comment in the comment section down below. Peace, and have a nice goddamn day.